Number 1. Apannaka Jataka, the story of the Supreme Dharma. A quiet afternoon at the Jeta Grove monastery, where the green tree canopies rustle in the gentle breeze, the Blessed One sits solemnly on the high seat, preparing to deliver a special sermon. The pale golden sunlight filters through the leaves, creating shimmering spots on the ground. The air is filled with the fragrance of lotus flowers and incense. Today's sermon is dedicated to the 500 friends of the great benefactor Anathapindika. They were originally disciples of other religious sects, but today they have been led here by Anathapindika with hearts full of curiosity and anticipation. Anathapindika, with a radiant face and light steps, leads the group into the monastery. Following him are his 500 friends, carrying fresh garlands, fragrant incense burners, and soft robes. They also bring honey, sweet sugarcane juice, and precious fabric rolls. The atmosphere becomes more lively as the group enters, with whispers and soft footsteps blending together. When they reach the Buddha, Anathapindika respectfully kneels down, touching his forehead to the ground in a gesture of reverence. He offers the precious gifts to the Buddha, each item carefully chosen. The fresh garlands are gently placed around the Buddha's seat, their sweet fragrance permeating the space. Anathapindika also thoughtfully distributes medicine and clothing to the monks, his face beaming with joy. After completing the offerings, Anathapindika quietly retreats to one side, sitting down in a dignified posture, avoiding the 6 faults of sitting according to proper etiquette. His 500 friends, though disciples of other sects, follow suit, respectfully bowing to the Buddha before sitting down around Anathapindika. Their eyes gradually turn towards the Buddha, and they are amazed by his transcendent beauty. The Buddha's face shines like a full moon, radiating a gentle yet powerful aura. Every feature of his face is perfect, displaying the 32 major marks and 80 minor marks of a great being. His body emits light for a fathom's length, as if surrounded by a brilliant halo. These rays of light constantly move, forming concentric circles, sparkling like precious jewel chains. Then the Buddha speaks, his voice resonating throughout the space like the roar of a young lion in the Red Valley. His voice is powerful like thunder, fierce like storm clouds in the rainy season, rushing like the flow of the celestial Ganges. Yet at the same time, his voice is gentle and melodious like heavenly music, as if woven from the golden threads of a precious jewel chain. Nevertheless, the Buddha's voice maintains an extraordinarily clear and soothing quality. His Brahma voice is perfect with 8 wonderful qualities, making the listener's ears feel delighted and comfortable. Each word, each sentence of his is like drops of sweet honey, imbued with wisdom and compassion, illuminating the souls of everyone present. The Buddha's sermon is not just an ordinary lecture, but a wonderful symphony of wisdom and compassion. Each idea he presents is as clear as the stars in the night sky. Each teaching contains its own unique beauty, like flowers of various colors in a spring garden. Those present, though disciples of other sects, are gradually drawn into the vast flow of the Buddha's wisdom, their minds slowly opening to receive the light of truth. As the Buddha's teachings resonate in the quiet space of the monastery, Anathapindika's 500 friends experience a profound transformation in their souls. The light of wisdom seems to permeate every cell, awakening them to the truth. With eyes shining with new faith, they stand up in unison, turning towards the Buddha with boundless reverence. In a solemn moment, they bow their heads to the teacher, as if offering their entire souls to the noble Dharma. From then on, they become fervent disciples of the Buddha. Every day, they joyfully accompany Anathapindika to the monastery, carrying fresh flower bouquets and fragrant incense burners. They listen to each of the Buddha's teachings with open minds, practice giving with joy, keep the precepts as if protecting precious jewels, and observe the 8 precepts with steadfast faith. However, the challenge to this newfound faith was not absent. When the Blessed One left Savatthi for Rajagaha, his absence created a great void in the hearts of the newly converted. Gradually, they began to waver, and then, like leaves falling before a strong wind, they returned to their old ways, taking refuge in other sects once again. 7 or 8 months passed like a long breath of time. When the Blessed One returned to Jeta Grove, the news spread as fast as lightning. Anathapindika, with a heart heavy with concern, led his 500 friends to see the teacher. They brought incense and flowers, their hearts full of shame and remorse. Anathapindika, with a somber voice, recounted to the Buddha the wavering faith of his friends. The Blessed One, with infinite compassion, looked down at the crowd prostrating at his feet. He opened his mouth, and his voice was like heavenly music, gentle yet profound. Each word he spoke was like a precious gem, radiating the light of wisdom, dispelling the darkness of ignorance in the hearts of those listening. With a deep but powerful voice, the Buddha asked, "Lay followers, is it true that you have broken the triple refuge and returned to the path of other sects?" Faced with this question, the men bowed their heads, not daring to look directly into the Buddha's compassionate eyes. They whispered, their voices full of shame, "Yes, Blessed One, it is true." The Buddha, with boundless compassion, began to teach. "Lay followers, listen carefully. In this vast universe, from the deepest hells to the highest heavens, in the countless worlds spread across the 10 directions, there is no one who can equal, let alone surpass, the Buddha in noble qualities such as morality, concentration, and wisdom." He continued, his voice like a cool stream, imbued with wisdom. "Bhikkhus, among all beings, whether footless, two-footed, or four-footed, the Tathagata is proclaimed as supreme. If there were any wealth, whether in this world or the next, none could compare to the value of the triple gem. And indeed, among those with faith, none can surpass those who have taken refuge in the triple gem." Finally, the Buddha concluded, his voice full of compassion but also stern, "There is no male or female lay follower who has taken refuge in the triple gem, those treasures containing immeasurable merit, who would be reborn in hell. On the contrary, they will be liberated from the lower realms, born in the world of devas, and have the opportunity to attain the higher meditative states. Therefore, when you broke your vow of refuge and returned to other sects, you committed a serious mistake." And here, to clarify that no one who has taken refuge in the 3 jewels with ultimate liberation in mind will be born in the lower realms, these verses must be recited. "Those who take refuge in the Buddha will not go to the lower realms, leaving the human body behind. Those who take refuge in the Dhamma will not go to the lower realms, leaving the human body behind. They will fill the heavenly realms. Those who take refuge in the Sangha will not go to the lower realms, leaving the human body behind. They will fill the heavenly realms. Men in fear seek many refuges, in mountains, forests, parks, trees, and shrines. That is not a secure refuge. That is not the supreme refuge. By taking such refuge, one is not released from all suffering. But one who takes refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, who sees with right understanding the 4 noble truths, suffering, the origin of suffering, the overcoming of suffering, and the noble eightfold path leading to the cessation of suffering. This indeed is a secure refuge. This indeed is the supreme refuge. By taking such a refuge, one is released from all suffering." The teacher not only preached to them like this. The Buddha, with compassionate eyes shining brightly, looked down at the attentive crowd. And when he spoke, his voice was like a cool stream imbued with wisdom. "Lay followers," he began, his voice deep and powerful, "listen carefully to what I am about to say. The practice of Buddha recollection, Dhamma recollection, and Sangha recollection are not mere words. They are the path to liberation, the boat that carries you across the sea of suffering. These practices lead to the path and fruit of stream entry, once return, non-return, and finally the path and fruit of arahantship." He paused for a moment, allowing these words to sink deep into the minds of the audience. Then, with a more solemn tone, he continued, "By breaking your refuge in this way, you have done something misguided. You have turned your back on the light and stepped into darkness. But do not fear, for the path of return is always open." The Buddha looked around the crowd, his eyes resting on each face. Then he continued, his voice becoming more profound. "Bhikkhus, there is one thing which, when developed and made much of, leads to complete revulsion, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? It is mindfulness of the Buddha." He paused, allowing the meaning of these words to sink deep into everyone's minds. Then, with a deep but decisive tone, he continued, "Dear devotees, listen carefully. In the distant past, those who clung to false doctrines, who held distorted views, who mistook what was not a true refuge for a genuine one, met with a tragic fate. They were devoured by yakas in the desolate desert, a dwelling place of non-humans, and fell into great calamity. Imagine, in the vast desert, without a single human presence, only the howling wind and swirling dust, what horrors they must have faced. The Buddha paused, allowing this terrifying image to sink deep into the minds of the audience. Then, with a gentler tone, he continued, "But fear not, dear devotees, for those who hold fast to the truth without frivolity, who cling to the Supreme Dharma, who adhere to the undistorted teachings, even in that same desert, they achieve peace and safety." Imagine, amidst the harsh desert, they find a lush oasis, a place of shade and sweet water, where they can rest and regain their strength. As the Buddha finished speaking, silence fell over the monastery, allowing his teachings to penetrate deeply into everyone's hearts. The atmosphere in the monastery became solemn and profound. Suddenly, the householder Anathapindika stood up. His face was filled with emotion and reverence. He slowly approached the Buddha, knelt down, and paid homage. Then, with hands clasped above his head, he spoke, his voice trembling with emotion. "Venerable Sir," he began, his voice full of respect and gratitude, "it is now clear to us that in the present time, these male lay followers, after breaking the supreme refuge, have fallen into the jungle of false doctrines. Like those lost in a deep forest, they have lost their way and strayed onto a dangerous path." He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath to gather courage, then continued. "But in the past, the great calamity of those who clung to false doctrines in the desert, the dwelling place of non-humans, and the peace and safety of those who adhered to the truth without frivolity, are obscured to us, clear only to you. Like the moonlight hidden by clouds, this truth remains dim to us." He looked up at the Buddha, his eyes full of hope and supplication. It would be wonderful if the Blessed One, as if causing the full moon to rise, could illuminate this matter for us. Please dispel the clouds of ignorance that cover our minds so that the light of wisdom may shine through. The Buddha smiled, his eyes filled with compassion. He looked at Anathapindika, then around at the attentive crowd. Finally he spoke, his voice deep and authoritative. "Householder," he began, "it is for the purpose of removing doubts in the world, through the perfect practice of the 10 paramitas over countless lifetimes, that I have attained omniscience. Listen carefully, as if you were pouring the marrow of a lion into a golden tube." He paused for a moment, allowing anticipation to build in the audience. Then, with a solemn tone, he continued, "I will tell you a story, a tale that has been obscured by rebirth, but now it will appear clearly, like the full moon revealed after dispersing the snow clouds." As the Buddha began his tale, the atmosphere in the monastery became so quiet that one could hear the falling of leaves. Everyone held their breath, waiting to hear the story the Buddha was about to tell, a story that would bring light to their souls and dispel the doubts in their hearts. Long ago, in the kingdom of Kasi, in the bustling city of Benares, there ruled a king named Brahmadatta. Amidst the busy streets and crowded markets, a young man stood out. He was the bodhisattva in this life. Born into a wealthy merchant family, he had shown extraordinary business acumen from a young age. As he grew up, the bodhisattva became a renowned merchant, leading grand caravans of 500 carts. The sound of horse hooves and rolling wheels echoed on the trade routes, sometimes heading east, sometimes west. Each journey brought back precious goods and enormous profits. Also, in this city of Benares, there was another caravan leader, young and inexperienced. He was known for his impulsive and thoughtless decisions, often getting into trouble in his business dealings. One day, as the trading season approached, the bodhisattva prepared for a big journey. He meticulously selected each item, carefully arranging them on 500 large carts. A bustling atmosphere enveloped the market as the caravan prepared to depart. At the same time, the young caravan leader was also hastily preparing for his journey. He too had 500 carts, loaded with similar goods, ready to depart. His haste and lack of caution created an atmosphere of tension and chaos. The bodhisattva, with his far-sighted wisdom, immediately recognized the potential problem. He thought, if both caravans set out at once, with a total of 1,000 carts, we will certainly face many difficulties. The road won't bear the weight, water and food sources will quickly be depleted. We need a smarter plan. With his characteristic wisdom, the Bodhisattva decided to meet the young caravan leader. He sent a message inviting him over, and in a private meeting, the Bodhisattva explained the situation. "Friend," the Bodhisattva said, his voice calm but persuasive, "we cannot set out at the same time. That would cause trouble for both of us. So, do you wish to go first or follow?" The young caravan leader, his eyes brightening with ambition, began to consider. He thought, "If I go first, there will be many advantages. I'll travel on an untrodden road, my oxen will eat the best fresh grass, my men will pick the tenderest curry leaves, drink the clearest water, and most importantly, I'll have the chance to set prices for goods as I wish." With barely concealed excitement, he quickly replied. "Friend," he said, his voice full of confidence, "I will go first. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to choose." The Bodhisattva smiled gently, showing no sign of disappointment. He had anticipated this reaction and had a plan of his own. In his mind, he began to analyze the benefits of going second. Those who go first will have to toil to level the rough road. I will travel on the path they have already cleared. My oxen will graze on the fresh grass that has grown back, sweeter and more nutritious. My men will pick the newly sprouted curry leaves, which are more fragrant. In places where water is scarce, they will have to dig wells, and I will benefit from their efforts. Most importantly, I won't be under pressure to set prices, but can sell goods at fair market value. After careful consideration, the Bodhisattva looked straight into the eyes of the young caravan leader and said in a calm voice, "Friend, I agree to let you go first. I wish you a safe and successful journey." "Well said, friend." The young and inexperienced caravan leader, his eyes gleaming with excitement, ordered the carts to be harnessed. The sound of whips cracking in the air and wheels rolling on rocky ground rang out as the caravan set off. They slowly passed through peaceful villages, where thatched houses nestled under cool green canopies, and finally approached the border of the wilderness, the vast desert waiting ahead. In the silent expanse of the desert, the wind blew gently, carrying heat and sand. This was no ordinary desert. According to ancient legend, there were 5 types of deserts, each hiding its own dangers. Robber-infested desert, where thieves lurk behind every sand dune, waiting for weary caravans. Wild beast desert, a wasteland where fierce lions and other wild animals reign. Waterless desert, an arid land where not a drop of water can be found for drinking or bathing. Non-human desert, the dwelling place of mysterious and ghostly creatures, beings not of the human world. Foodless desert, a barren land where no plant or creature can survive. Among these 5 types of deserts, the 2 most dangerous were the waterless desert and the non-human desert. They not only threatened the lives of travelers, but also challenged their spirit and will. Aware of the potential dangers, the young caravan leader, though inexperienced, was not unprepared. He ordered large jars to be placed on the carts. The sound of water gurgling echoed as they filled each jar, preparing for the long journey of 60 leagues across the arid land ahead. When the caravan had traveled halfway, under the scorching sun of the desert, a frightening dark figure lurked. It was the Yaka demon, the ruler of this desolate land. With bloodshot eyes and a sinister smile, it whispered in the sandy wind, "I will make these people throw away their precious water. When they are exhausted, I will feast on their flesh." With mysterious power, the Yaka demon conjured up a mesmerizing scene. A magnificent chariot appeared, pulled by snow-white oxen with rippling muscles under their glossy skin. On the chariot sat a majestic figure, wearing a crown woven from blue lotuses and pure white water lilies. 12 non-human guards with gleaming weapons in hand surrounded the chariot like an invincible army. The entourage of this false lord was a strange and captivating sight. They moved with grace, their hair and clothes dripping wet as if they had just bathed in a cool stream. In their hands, they held bunches of white and vibrant red lotuses, chewing on crisp and sweet lotus stems. With each step they took, drops of water and mud fell, creating the illusion of a lush oasis in the middle of the barren desert. Suddenly, the desert wind changed direction, blowing from the front of the caravan. Following the custom to avoid dust, the young caravan leader moved his cart to the front, leading the group. He had no idea that this decision was bringing him closer to the deadly trap of the Yaka demon. The Yaka demon, with its bloodshot eyes and sinister smile, had been waiting for this moment. As it saw the caravan approaching, it chuckled quietly to itself, then quickly transformed into an ordinary traveler. It stopped its cart by the roadside with a friendly and enthusiastic expression. "Greetings, friends," its voice rang out, as sweet as honey but hiding an unrecognizable danger. "Where are you headed?" The young caravan leader, with an innocent and trusting face, also stopped his cart. He looked at the stranger with curious and naive eyes, unaware that he was facing a deadly danger. "My good sir," he spoke up, his voice full of excitement, "we come from Benares, but I must say, I'm truly curious about you. You're adorned with beautiful blue lotuses and water lilies, holding brilliant white and red lotuses. I see you chewing on crisp lotus stems and sweet lotus roots. Oh, and those cool water droplets falling from your clothes and body. How marvelous. Surely there must have been rain on your journey, or perhaps there are vast lakes of blue lotuses." The Yaka demon, hearing the young man's enthusiastic questions, smiled even wider. Its eyes sparkled strangely as it answered, its voice echoing in the hot desert air. "Oh, my dear friend, can't you see? Over there." It pointed towards the horizon, where there seemed to be a hazy blue strip. "That's the vast green forest calling to us. From there on, my friend, it's a cool green paradise. Water, you ask? Oh, water is everywhere. It rains incessantly, crystal clear lakes overflow, and everywhere there are beautiful lotus ponds in full bloom." The Yaka's words were like a mesmerizing invitation, enchanting the entire young caravan. They looked at each other, eyes sparkling with hope for the cool green paradise awaiting them ahead. As the caravan passed by, the demon continued its act. It asked with feigned curiosity, "Say, friends, where are those carts headed?" The group, still immersed in the beautiful vision just painted for them, replied vaguely, "Oh, we're going here and there." The demon continued to probe, its voice growing increasingly eager. "And what do each of these carts carry?" "Many kinds of goods," they replied without a hint of suspicion. Finally, as the last, largest, and heaviest cart passed by, the demon couldn't contain its curiosity. It asked, its voice as if holding its breath, "And this cart, what does it carry that looks so heavy?" "Oh, this cart," the caravan leader replied, his voice full of pride. "It carries water, lots of water." Hearing this, the Yaka demon was as if it had just found a treasure. It quickly spoke up, its voice sweet but hiding cunning. "Oh, my dear friends, you were very wise to bring water from your starting point all the way here. But now I have good news for you." It paused, creating a moment of tension. "From here on, you no longer need to carry that burden. Ahead, there's water in abundance. Break those water jars so you can travel light and comfortably." Then, as if to urge them on, it added, its voice full of haste, "Come on, you should get going. We must be on our way too, lest we be late." After saying this, the Yaka demon quickly left, disappearing behind a sand dune, then returned to its city, its heart full of excitement waiting for the upcoming feast. The young caravan leader, with his immature mind and lack of experience, was completely bewitched by the Yaka demon's words. Without hesitation, he ordered his group to break all the water jars. The sound of breaking water containers echoed in the desert space, mingling with the joyful laughter of the caravan, thinking they were about to be freed from their burden. But then, as they continued their journey, the harsh reality gradually emerged. The further they went, not a drop of water appeared. Their throats were parched, lips cracked, and strength slowly drained. The desert sun was like a giant fireball, burning away their last hopes. As the sun began to set, in desperation, they stopped. With tired movements, they unhitched the carts, arranging them in a circle like a final fortress against the harsh desert. The oxen, also parched with thirst, were tied to the wheels, standing there with dull eyes and emaciated bodies. The desert night fell quickly and coldly. With no water, no food, the entire group lay scattered on the sand, exhausted and desperate. They fell into a deep sleep, not knowing it would be their last. When the darkness was thickest, the Yaka demon silently approached from its city. With bloodshot eyes glowing in the darkness and a horrific smile, it began its bloody feast. Each life, from humans to oxen, was cruelly taken. Its growls mingled with the final agonizing cries of the unfortunate victims. When dawn broke, All that remained were white bones scattered on the sand, and 500 carts standing still like giant tombstones in the vast desert. That was the price paid for the inexperience and blind trust of a young and foolish caravan leader. A month and a half had passed since the day the young and inexperienced caravan leader set out. The Bodhisattva, with eyes shining with wisdom and a confident smile, led his caravan towards the edge of the desert. 500 heavily loaded carts rolled along, their creaking wheels blending with the steady footsteps of people and animals. Upon reaching the desert's border, the Bodhisattva ordered a halt. In an atmosphere filled with anticipation and excitement, he began directing the group to prepare for the arduous journey ahead. The sound of water gurgling echoed as jars were filled, and the clinking of water containers being loaded onto the carts could be heard. The atmosphere became more lively as the assembly drum sounded, calling everyone to gather. Standing before the group, the Bodhisattva spoke in a deep, authoritative voice. "Listen carefully, my friends. This journey is fraught with danger, and every drop of water is as precious as gold. Therefore, I order, no one is to use water without asking me, even if it's just a small handful. This desert also harbors many poisonous plants. You must be extremely cautious, not eating any leaves, flowers, or fruits you haven't eaten before. Consult me before doing anything." After giving thorough instructions, the Bodhisattva signaled for the group to depart. The 500 carts slowly moved into the vast desert, leaving behind the last patches of green land. When the group had traveled halfway, suddenly a strange figure appeared before them. It was the Yaka demon, with blood-red eyes and a fearless demeanor. The Bodhisattva saw it and immediately recognized the danger. Thoughts quickly raced through his mind. This must be a place without a drop of water, a truly barren desert. This demon, with its bloodshot eyes and frightening appearance, casts no shadow. Surely it has deceived and destroyed previous caravans, but it doesn't know that I have prepared thoroughly and have the wisdom to deal with it. With a voice full of confidence and determination, the Bodhisattva spoke, his words echoing across the desert. "Begone, demon. We are experienced merchants. We will not spill a single drop of water until we see a new water source with our own eyes. Only when we are certain there is water will we consider lightening our carts." The Yaka demon, surprised by the Bodhisattva's resolve, took a few steps back. It looked at the Bodhisattva with a mixture of astonishment and anger, then quickly disappeared behind a sand dune, returning to its city with visible disappointment. When the demon had vanished, the group began to stir. They approached the Bodhisattva, their eyes filled with worry and curiosity. One person in the group, with a slightly trembling voice, spoke up. "Master, we have just witnessed a strange sight. In the distance, there is a lush green forest. Outside that forest, it seems to be raining incessantly. We saw people wearing garlands of cool blue lotuses and freshwater lilies on their heads. They held bunches of bright red and pure white lotus flowers in their hands. Some were picking sweet lotus roots and tender lotus stems. Their clothes and hair were soaking wet, water dripping as they moved. Master, perhaps we should pour out some water to lighten our carts, then quickly head in that direction. We could travel faster and soon reach that fertile land." The Bodhisattva listened attentively to the group's request, his eyes thoughtfully gazing towards the distant horizon. In his mind, calculations were quickly taking place. With a calm yet authoritative voice, he ordered the caravan to halt. The sound of wheels grinding on sand and the tired mooing of oxen gradually subsided as the group gathered around the Bodhisattva, their eyes full of expectation. The Bodhisattva looked around at the group, his sharp eyes seeming to examine each face. Then, with a deep, warm voice, he began to ask, "My fellow travelers, has anyone among you ever heard of a lake or lotus pond in this arid desert?" A murmur arose from the crowd, then a voice spoke up, representing all. "Master, none of us have ever heard of such a thing. That's why this place is called the waterless desert, the most barren land." The Bodhisattva nodded, his expression pensive. He continued, "Yet some of you say that over there, beyond that lush green forest, it's raining. In your opinion, how far can the wind carry the moisture from rain?" A bearded man stepped forward, his voice confident. "Master, in our experience, the rain wind can blow as far as 1 yojana, equivalent to about 7 miles today. The Bodhisattva raised an eyebrow, his eyes brightening as if leading everyone closer to the truth. Has anyone among you felt the cool, moist breeze touching your skin? Silence fell over the group. Finally, a soft voice spoke up. Master, none of us have felt anything like that. The Bodhisattva continued to ask sharp questions, gradually clarifying the situation. From how far away can you see clouds? About 1 yojana, Master, the crowd answered in unison. Has anyone among you seen even a wisp of cloud in that sky? No one has, Master. The answer now sounded somewhat worried. The Bodhisattva continued. What about lightning? From how far away can we see it? Master, about 4 to 5 yojanas. An experienced voice spoke up. Has anyone among you caught even a glimpse of lightning? No one has, Master. The crowd replied, their voices beginning to tremble. The Bodhisattva, with a reassuring look, asked further, and what about thunder? How far can it be heard? Master, about 2 to 3 yojanas. A tall man answered, his voice deep. Has anyone among you heard the rumble of thunder? No one has, Master. By now, the entire group had begun to realize something was amiss. The Bodhisattva remained silent for a moment, allowing the truth to gradually sink into everyone's mind. Then, with a voice deep and resolute, he declared, My friends, what you see are not humans, they are yaka demons. These cunning creatures are trying to deceive us into pouring out our water. They think, when the group is exhausted from thirst, we will eat them. The caravan before us, led by a young and inexperienced leader, fell into their trap. They poured out all their water and when exhausted became food for the yaka demons. Their 500 carts, still full of goods, now lie scattered everywhere, waiting for us to discover them. The Bodhisattva looked around at the group, his eyes stern but full of determination. Today, we will not let history repeat itself. Do not pour out even a single drop of water. Every handful of water is as precious as gold. Let's move forward as quickly as possible. With the Bodhisattva's wise advice, the group set out with renewed spirit. They continued their journey until they encountered a horrifying sight. 500 carts full of goods, bones of unfortunate oxen, and people scattered everywhere. The scene was like a silent warning about the fate of those who lack vigilance. Without hesitation, the Bodhisattva ordered a halt. With calmness and decisiveness, he directed the group to untie the carts and arrange them in a circle, forming a safe camp. The sound of people talking, metal clashing as they unloaded goods, and tired oxen mooing blended together, creating a symphony of a night in the desert. As night fell, the Bodhisattva had no intention of resting. He selected the bravest individuals as leaders, then stood guard himself, holding a sharp sword. For 3 watches, from dusk till dawn, he remained ready, his bright eyes scanning every dark corner of the desert, his ears listening for every strange sound in the quiet night. When the first rays of sunlight appeared, the Bodhisattva was ready for the next leg of the journey. He organized everyone to work with maximum efficiency, feeding the oxen, discarding weak carts, keeping the sturdy ones. Less valuable goods were left behind, making room for precious items. Every decision was carefully considered to ensure the survival and success of the entire group. Finally, the caravan reached its destination safely. Here, under the wise guidance of the Bodhisattva, they sold their goods for 2 or 3 times the original price. Joy and success filled everyone's hearts as they returned to the city with the Bodhisattva, bringing not only material wealth, but also invaluable lessons about wisdom and courage. When the story ended, the teacher, with compassionate eyes and a warm voice, looked down at the attentive crowd and said, Dear lay disciples, listen carefully. In those ancient times, those who clung to wrong views suffered terrible calamities. They were like fragile boats in the vast sea, swept away by waves into the abyss. On the contrary, those who accepted the truth, though sometimes difficult to understand, escaped the clutches of non-human beings. They were like sturdy ships, overcoming all storms, safely reaching the shore. And now I will combine these 2 stories, like 2 rivers merging into the ocean of wisdom. My purpose is to introduce the teaching of the indisputable truth, the supreme truth that needs no argument. Listen to this verse and let it sink deep into your hearts. There are those who speak the indisputable truth, like a bright lamp dispelling thick darkness. But other types of people proclaim false doctrines, like flickering fireflies, only dimming the light. The wise know this, like bees seeking sweet honey, hold fast to the Supreme Dharma like a priceless treasure. Reflect carefully on this teaching. It is not just empty words, but the path leading to liberation. The Blessed One, with eyes radiant with wisdom, continued to explain, "This righteous path, my dear disciples, is not merely a road, it is a marvelous journey, a spiritual adventure full of promise. It not only brings 3 good accomplishments, joys in the present, but also opens the door to 6 heavenly realms in the desire realm, where happiness and peace reign. But that is not the final destination. This path also leads to the attainment of the Brahma world, where the soul is completely purified. And finally, like the most precious jewel on the crown of enlightenment, it brings the fruit of arahantship, complete liberation from all suffering and rebirth. Conversely, the path called false doctrine, oh, how frightening and dangerous it is. It is like a rotten boat, only taking people to the shore of suffering. It leads to rebirth in the 4 lower realms, places of darkness and full of suffering. Or if luckier, it only leads to 5 low families, where life is full of difficulties and deprivation. Choose your path wisely, my children. Be like wise travelers in the desert, knowing how to distinguish between mirages and real oases." Then, with infinite compassion, he opened wide the door of wisdom, further explaining the 4 noble truths with 16 aspects. His teaching was like a cool rain, permeating the souls of those present. And behold, a miracle occurred. When the sermon ended, all 500 male lay disciples, friends of Anathapindika, simultaneously attained the fruit of stream entry. The light of wisdom shone in their eyes, like candles just lit in the darkness. After finishing the sermon, the teacher, with a gentle smile on his lips, looked down at the crowd filled with joy. He pointed out the precious lessons hidden in the 2 stories, then skillfully combined them, like a talented artisan weaving golden threads into a precious tapestry. Finally, with a warm voice and eyes sparkling with wisdom, he identified the birth story as follows. Disciples, in that ancient story, the young and thoughtless caravan leader was Devadatta. His followers, who blindly followed the wrong path, are Devadatta's followers in this life. As for the followers of the wise caravan leader, those who believed and followed the right path, they are my followers, the loyal disciples of the Buddha in the present. And finally, that wise caravan leader, who led the entire group through the dangerous desert with wisdom and courage, was I, Shakyamuni Buddha, in this life. Remember this story, my disciples. It is not just a story about the past, but also a lesson for the present and future. Always be awake, wise in choosing your path. Dear friend, we are truly fortunate to live in this era and to learn the teachings from the Buddha. Hidden behind each story are profound lessons that help us escape suffering in life. From there, we can achieve complete peace and happiness. Right now, please click the subscribe button to stay connected and receive information about the latest videos. Don't forget to share and comment below with your feelings or opinions. May you always be at peace in the true Dharma. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.